This is the Living in Clarity podcast. I'm Coach Ratner. Today we're at the studios of Faith International in the Old City of Jerusalem. Faith International is a nonprofit organization that is helping out soldiers who need supplies at battle, and they're also helping out the families of soldiers and the displaced families here in Jerusalem. So please give generously to the organization. Below there is a link where you can click and donate. But today we also have a special guest, Darren Glick, all the way from New York. Darren Glick, it's great to have you today.
Nice to be here.
Your story is quite amazing. You end up coming to Jerusalem before the war on vacation, and now you're still here and you're helping out in many ways that you can. Tell us your story.
Well, it took me 3 years to get here, and for whatever reason, and now that I'm here, I got here a week before the war with an open ticket. Not sure why I did it like that,
But you tried coming for 3 years, right?
I did try coming.
So it just happened to be that you happened to come right before the war.
Yes. For a variety of reasons, I could not come. I was sick, and I finally got doctor's approval 2 weeks before the war.
Yes.
1 week before the war, I bought an open ticket a few days before the flight, and
Which most people don't do, right?
I don't think I've ever done it. Maybe I've done it once. I don't know why I did it like that, but for whatever reason, I did it, and the war started, and I felt it was my obligation to stay.
Yes. So what have you been doing to help out with the war process, the whole idea? Because everyone's doing something. My wife makes, my wife makes, she's making the tzitzit, and my kids have been doing packages. And now, actually everything here in Jerusalem is almost back to normal. It seems because my kids are in schools, they have their programs. It's almost like, I feel like we're in a little bubble here.
Yeah. I call it the eye of the storm.
That's a really good statement because it's true. We are in the middle of a hurricane, but we're in the calm part of it.
I feel like the eye wall is extremely strong, and I pray that it expands every day.
Yes,
but
amen to that.
Amen. And it does feel like you're in almost like a slice of Gan Eden to some extent, because the unity that you're experiencing, that I'm experiencing, and participating in now, is an incredibly powerful feeling. So what am I doing, you asked? It happens to change every day.
Yes.
And it just the same way that I met David and I met you and I met other people.
David is our
producer.
Our producer here in Jerusalem.
It happens. It just happens. And those that have been here for a while just accept it and understand it, and you don't really have to even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
I have as a musician, I remember writing a lyric to some extent. You in the blind spot. I forgot exactly what the. In the blind spot, you can see the heart of the city.
Yeah.
But you don't stare, you don't dare, you don't care. You just let it be.
Oh, that's nice. I love rhyming. I'm big into rhyming.
And that's how sometimes my day goes. Sometimes it's very set, and sometimes it ends up me ending up doing an interview for Faces International.
Yeah, it's funny because we had a podcast studio we were using pretty much the last 4, 5, 6 months, and we lost it. The person, whatever, went out of business, and so we don't have a podcast studio. And then Face International called me.
There you go.
Saying we wanted you to help us out to do some producing of some podcasts.
Right.
And personally, I don't know about the audience, but I've been in a very dark. I have not been okay. People, I came to the Old City just today, and someone says, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm okay." I'm like, "No, I was not okay."
Right.
It's not. I'm not okay now, but I'm much better than I was, a few weeks ago. I was not okay. I don't think anyone who's Jewish in the world was okay. No. I think you wake up every single morning with a pit in your stomach. And for me, I'm just hoping to wake up in the morning living in Jerusalem, and I want to hear shofars blowing that we've rescued at least some of the obviously all of them, I want them, but like it feels like that if the IDF can rescue some hostages, that they're making progress.
Right.
So, and I haven't heard that yet, and it's like it's this pit in your stomach, and then you see 5 soldiers killed, 2 soldiers killed, which I know in the scheme of things is not a lot, but these are people, these are young men.
I don't think any of us are okay.
No, I don't think anyone's okay. And by the way, it's okay to not be okay. You have to be happy with where you are, which is not okay. I'm not happy with it, but you have to. That's our reality.
And the difference between many people and ourselves at this moment is that the way we react to not being okay is what the reason I'm here.
Yeah,
and that is the selflessness and the unity, the achdus, the selflessness, the care. I've never experienced something like this, but I knew it was going to happen, and that's one of the reasons I stayed, or probably the main reason I stayed.
Because of the uni.
I knew something special was going to happen like this,
Yeah.
and I wanted to not just witness it; I wanted to participate.
Yeah, it does feel good to be here. In fact,
Yeah.
there's a number of unity trips that have come to Jerusalem
Right.
last week, and everyone that comes says, I don't want to leave. I really like being here.
Yeah. Everybody I know that's come here
Yeah.
is upset that they left.
Yeah.
And they're going to.
And I know one of the trips went to Sderot, and they had some missiles there this week,
Right.
and which is unfortunately like it's like I gotta say, it's almost like rain. It's like, oh yeah, it's gonna rain. We gotta put a raincoat. It's like missiles are like rain there. It's just a common thing that you live with.
Right.
But these people are from America and they're not used to it, and they had to go to the bomb shelter, and they still don't want to leave.
You mentioned before we're not okay, and
No, we're not.
I have a friend of mine whose son is a hostage in Gaza, Hirsch ben Perel Chana, if you can have him in mind in your prayers.
His name? Can you repeat his name again?
Hirsch ben Perel Chana.
Hirsch ben Perel Chana.
Yes. He had his, unfortunately, he had his arm below the elbow blown off.
Oh,
And apparently he tourniqueted himself, and they have a video of him being on one of the cars going into Gaza.
oh,
So his mother, Rachel, has been extremely strong and active throughout the entire world. She's been in the United Nations. She was talking in Washington. And it's very important to just keep his name as well as all the Chatufim, all the hostages' names in our mind, in our prayers, and vocally and share them as well on social media.
I don't know about you, but I have had. There's a name for it where you feel guilty that you're not a hostage, and like, why is it not me?
It's something, some sort of syndrome.
Yeah.
But
I have remorse. I
Yeah.
have guilt. Like I'm guilty that I'm not, like.
Munchausen syndrome.
Well, yeah, I
Something
feel
like
guilty. Like that. Why is it not me? Why do they have like an 8-year-old girl? Like it's ridiculous. These young girls and mothers. Like it's hard to even
To get into
imagine.
that psyche, Coach Ratner,
Yeah.
is deep and dark.
Yes.
And I know that even when I'm praying for one specific hostage, I feel guilty that I'm not praying for all of them. And I have a list of all of them.
Yeah.
I do try to go through all of them. So when I do post or when I do pray, I first pray, according to my rabbi, you should first pray for Klal Yisrael.
Yes.
Then pray for the Chatufim, all of the hostages. And then you can go pray for specific individuals, which I do. And, in that way, it relieves a little bit of that psychological guilt to be praying for just one.
Yeah. I excuse me. My wife said something to me, which is, she's very spiritual, and maybe someday I get to meet her. But she said that it's not meant for you to be there. God intended for those people to be there, and that's a hard thing to understand. Why do bad things happen to good people? But it really has helped me a lot. That my purpose for not being a hostage is to do something else, which may be to be filming these podcasts for Faces International to raise money for them to help the soldiers and help the families. So who knows? We don't know what the end game where it's going to take us. But it's been really hard to get over that. That why am I here and they're not? And so that's been kind of the big issue. But I'm coming out of that dark place, and I'm hopefully other people are, and we do have to have joy in our life, and our weddings, and our bar mitzvahs, and we have to have some joy. It can be muted, it can be muted. I know my wife's birthday is today actually, and I don't feel like I'll take my wife to dinner and have. I don't. It's hard to want to celebrate.
As a musician, I didn't even think of picking up the guitar for several weeks.
Yeah.
And there came a time where somebody invited me to play for her family as well as some of the yeshiva students of her school. And it felt right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have felt right for me to just, be jamming on Ben Yehuda Street.
Sure.
Somewhere. But when you said that it didn't, why aren't you a hostage? And exactly what is your purpose right here, right now? And I've been thinking about that. I think a lot of people have been thinking like that. Every morning I pray. I found a little spot right by, underneath the King David. Behind the King David is a beautiful little neighborhood called something Moshe.
Oh, you mean Moshe?
You mean
There's a
Moshe.
shul there.
Right. There's a shul. So above the shul, there's a little spot where I can just pray with the old city in my view.
Yeah.
And you realize that, okay, 3 years it took me to get here, but every step we've taken, every action we've taken in our lives, not just me and you, everybody has led to this moment. And what is it that we're supposed to do? So you're supposed to be here. You
Yeah.
are. That's why you're here. And I'm supposed to be here. And David is supposed to be helping us. And everybody that's in New York, United States, and around the world, that's where they're supposed to be. And once you come to that realization, it becomes a little more comfortable
Yes.
with the path that you've been not. I didn't even choose. I chose everything up to this point, and then going forward up to that point. Every single step that I take, I feel, is walking in that derech.
Yeah.
And that's how you and I met.
Yeah. So I think the two things I want to discuss that really cause a lot of this angst that we have is one, obviously the war itself and the 1,400 people that died and all the hostages, but one is the reactions from the world. I mean, like, it is just crazy that you see people coming out immediately, not even like the first day with pro-Hamas supporters, pro-Palestinian. Now, we can separate the pro-Hamas, Palestinian, whatever, it's two different things. But, I mean, it's really hard to imagine that can happen on the first day.
To not give our people the chance to mourn before we even buried our dead
Yes.
is unforgivable.
Yeah.
I can understand that somebody could be protesting for whatever reason, but there was no rationale behind their protest, given the fact that we hadn't even buried our dead yet and hadn't lifted a
Gun.
piece of military to respond yet.
Yeah.
So what we see going on in the entire world is pure Jew hatred.
Exactly.
And if they had the same reaction to when Syria killed 500,000 of their own people,
I don't remember seeing protests.
I don't remember seeing a peep. And the silence of the people that should be supporting us, like our so-called friends, the silence is deafening.
Yes.
And listen, I think it's important, like Sun Tzu said, know your enemy.
Yeah.
I've always felt it's good to know who your enemy is.
Yes.
A lot of people have felt betrayed by people on the left. I have friends of mine that are liberal Democrats or liberal, traditional liberals, and they marched with, I'm not even going to name them, but pretty much everybody they marched with. And right now they expected to have some support, some sympathy, and what they have is the opposite.
Yes.
They have hatred, vitriol, and just pure anti-Semitism, pure Jew hatred.
Yeah.
And we know this.
Yeah. Anyone who knows, who has clarity, this podcast is called Living in Clarity.
Right.
Because I like to live in clarity. And there is a tremendous, which has, lasted for thousands of years, tremendous amount of Jew hatred.
Right.
And then people, I have a TikTok account and a YouTube account, and people say, well, how come they've hated them for thousands of years? They don't give an answer. But, it's not, this is not a land issue, obviously.
No.
Not a land. They've turned down lands. They've turned down, they don't want us, they want us dead,
The clarity that you're referring to is that Amalek, the way they describe it in the Torah, is that
Amalek, right?
Amalek, the way Amalek is described in the Torah, that despite knowing full well that their attack on us will eliminate themselves, they will destroy themselves if they attack us, they will nonetheless attack us and try to kill us and try to weaken us.
And there's no reason for the hatred.
There's no reason. It's beyond reason, and therefore you can't try to reason with these people.
No, you can't.
There's no reason that started it, so there's no reason that will finish it.
Right.
On the same extent, I looked at it. I remember going, this is, somebody had said to me, the equation for Jews around the world and understanding what happened has changed. The entire reality of how we have to look at the world has changed. And I said, actually, the equation has remained the same. It's just that we forgot the equation.
Yeah.
The equation has always been that they will hate us, especially when we're not united, especially when we're not following Torah and mitzvahs, especially when what we were watching in our own country, and I was watching it from afar, and then when I was here, I was still watching it, you sensed there was a weakness. And there is now information coming out that they actually they understood that we were weak.
Yes.
And they were actually they pushed up their attack because they understood that there was a weakness going on here.
Yeah.
They were watching every Saturday night what was happening in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
and you and I sensed it. So of course our enemy is going to.
Of course, yes.
But what they didn't expect was how strong they were going to unite us.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want to think for them, but I'm not sure that they expected the reaction.
Not a chance. Did they expect?
I'm not sure they expected to kill 1,400 people either. I don't think they. I'm not sure they expected to take 240 hostages. I'm not sure any of this was. I have no idea.
As Hillel Fold said, and I watched his video.
Yes.
There's also a way of positively looking at this, because had they wanted to, they could have walked in with 20,000 people.
They could have.
And they could have killed, God forbid,
tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands. They got caught up in some of the stupidity of what they do.
I mean, the filming and
the rape and the murder
right.
and the atrocity. And I was talking to somebody who said to me that their rabbi tried to explain why is it that kind of vitriol and that type of violence comes out. And he said something interesting, and it's still reverberating with me, and maybe you can share after I tell you. Maybe you can explain to me what you think. He said that the rabbi was explaining, and I don't remember which rabbi, otherwise I would quote him and source him, that when we as Jews or people that are God-fearing and believers in the Torah see God or see his ways or witness something amazing, even if it's devastatingly amazing or positively amazing, we internalize it and then can bring it out in a good, positive way, because we have a keli to be able to accept and hold that vessel.
Right.
They do not. So that when they see it, they have no other way of expressing themselves other than through that hate.
By violence.
By violence.
Well, the word Hamas is in the Torah.
Right.
And it's used for the word, it means violence or I think thievery or stealing or something. I think both of them.
Yeah.
And it's funny they call themselves
Hamas.
Yeah, it's really
and of course this week's parsha, we had two amazing things that were in the parsha. One was that Yaakov should go to the White House, the house of Lavan.
Right.
And they mention Yehudit Bat Beri, which is the hostage whose body was unfortunately identified
just a few days ago,
murdered by Hamas, and they were recovered from underneath the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
That was her name, Yehudit, and she was from the Beri kibbutz.
Yes.
As well as going to the White House, and the second part of it was that that Yaakov should go to House of Lavan, the White House, and that the hostages should be returned. The Hamas, it's quoted in there. We can put the quote perhaps underneath, but that the Hamas will have to return hostages within the same pasuk. And yes, Esau took Yehudit, and it also says Esau took other people's wives as hostages and wives and as slaves and hostages.
Yes, this is
the translation. So we're witnessing the actual Torah being repetitive.
We did a podcast. It's not out yet. We filmed last week about how when Avraham and his nephew Lot were not getting along,
in conflict.
They had a conflict between what do you call the ones that the sheep, the herders are having a conflict. Says, okay, instead of saying you go east and I go west, said you go left and I go right, or you go right and I go left, which was the main cause of problems here in Israel, was the left and right fighting each other. I mean, it was some fighting.
I didn't see that. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, that's crazy. It's crazy. And then what's even more amazing is that Abraham was born in the year 1948 on the Jewish calendar, which coincides with 1948, the founding of the state of Israel.
Right.
And God told him to leave his land. He left and he came to Haran 75 years later. And that's the same year that this issue with Lot happened. And then Lot immediately was kidnapped by 4 kings. And Abraham had to go rescue him. And that year in the Jewish calendar was 2023.
The parallels
that's pretty crazy.
From the beginning, Coach Ratner, the parallels have been amazing.
And I always have to be careful because I'm not very spiritual. I like statistics. I like reality.
I'd like to debate that, but okay.
I'm not that spiritual. So like when even today I was learning with my rabbi and he said something. I go, we were talking today about we're talking about the 14 years that Yaakov was in the yeshiva Shem and Aver.
Right.
And then the first 4 words of this week's Torah portion are the words you can find by mixing letters is, Shem, Aver, and Arba Yisrael, right? It's in there, right? So I said, that's like, taking an arrow, and hitting a tree and then making your making your bullseye around the arrow. And I think a lot of Torah sometimes is like that. Yes. And that I'm not a big fan of that. But this is not that.
We're not seeing that.
We're not seeing. This is like it's all matching what's the Torah saying.
Yes.
And the Torah says God will bless those that bless the Jews. This is one of the main things that I love in the Torah. God will bless those that bless the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, and God will curse those that curse the Jewish nation. Now, when you look at all the countries in the world that are friendly and nice and vote for Israel, they're amazing countries. I mean, you could accomplish a lot. Everyone wants to live there. They're high standards of living. They could come out they're constantly innovating and growing. And the countries that do not bless Israel, the ones that curse Israel, how are they doing?
Some of them have been deleted from history.
Like a lot of them. Like think about all the Jewish people. God said the Jewish people will be around forever, and I don't know how our enemies do not see this. Where the police team and the Canaanites and the ancient Greeks and the Romans, none of them are around anymore.
Egypt, Rome, Babylon.
And I was not raised in an observant home. I was raised in a very secular Jewish home, like many Jews. And when I started thinking about how the state of Israel formed and how everything in the Torah led up to the state of Israel, and it says in the Torah, you'll be burned, the Holocaust is in Devarim. I mean, it's all written out in the Holocaust. And you'll come back to me as a nation, which means we're having the greatest return of Jews to Torah in the history of the world ever. There's more Jews learning Torah right now than any time in the history of the world. I mean, you have 7,000 people just in the Mir Yeshiva here in Jerusalem. And you go to Lakewood, it's like tens of thousands or 100,000 people learning Torah. So we're coming back to God, and we took this country which was barren by any stretch of the imagination. Nothing would grow here. Nothing. And then suddenly now we are exporters of fruit and vegetables and coming out with some of the greatest technology, not just in healthcare, but in all sorts of innovation. And like, how do you not see God's hand? How do you not see that this is an absolute miracle? Not at the same time that we live in a country where every country we are surrounded by wants to destroy us and kill us. Like, how do you not say,
and the population,
how do you not say, okay, this is all random? Like, this is not random.
And the population of Israel has increased by 3% since the start of the war.
Since the start of the war?
Yes.
Yeah.
So around the world, people have gone to a country where there's a war, where there was a mass murder, where there was atrocities, and there's rockets being fired every day. There's missiles from Lebanon. And this is where people feel safer. So, what does that tell you? It's what other country?
Well, that doesn't really tell a lot.
What other country has a population increase?
Right. Exactly.
Usually they run. They're running from the country.
Yeah, I had
running to the country.
Yeah, I had people in my family say, "Are you coming back?" And like I thought about it. I mean, like, should we go back? I'm going to think about it. I'm not like so hardcore. Like, I'm staying here no matter what. Like, no, I have to protect my family. That's my job, is to protect my family. And I think about where's the safest place for my family. And I started thinking about it, and I discussed with my wife, and she had no interest in going back anywhere. I'm like, I think we just have to stay here. I think this might be the safest place. I mean, like, we pray here, we live here. Jews have been in Jerusalem forever. I mean, there was times that the Arabs tried to throw them out. Like, I mean, this is so not about land. This is so not about that. This is complete Jew hatred. That's all this is. There's good and there's evil. And you can see in the protests, you can see in the protests around the world, which protests are like about, like they talked about in America they had a gathering, a rally last week. It wasn't a protest. They weren't protesting it. This is return the hostages, and it was all about love and unity. That's all it was.
Yeah.
But you don't see that anywhere in Europe or in America when they have these colleges.
Evil exposes itself. And
they're evil. It is just pure evil.
Yeah.
And they say, well, genocide. The Arab population has increased from 700,000, the Palestinians from 1948, 700,000 to 7 million. That doesn't sound like genocide to me.
No, there's no genocide here. There's no There's no occupation either
Yeah.
of Gaza. That's all.
And it's
You know what that is, Coach Ratner?
What?
That is a modern day blood libel
Yeah.
that we're witnessing.
Yes.
That we've been told about for thousands
Of years, I know.
So why? I had to ask myself. So why is this? Why would this happen? One of the things that I recognize, not why, but the how, or the perhaps a spiritual reason behind it. We were told these stories by our ancestors in the Bible, as well as by our own ancestors, our grandparents, and it was seared into their brain, into their DNA, into their psyche, the stuff that they saw, whether it be in Germany or in Poland or different parts of the
Russia,
world,
anywhere.
and it was
Spain.
passed down to us, and if another 50 years had gone by, that DNA memory, that psychological memory,
Yes.
would have been gone. And now, this is now seared into our minds.
Oh, I
and
know.
we will absolutely be forwarding this knowledge to the next generation. It's actually one of the, you asked me, what am I doing here? One of the things I'm doing is I work for a magazine called White Rose Magazine, which was started by Sophie Scholl, who was a University of Munich student, as a anti-Nazi rag,
Okay.
leaflet, I should say. She was handing them out to students while Hitler's rise was happening, and she was hung for her activism. She was hung. We, at White Rose, the founder and editor, Karen Lerman Block, took control of the name, or bought the
Right.
name. And what we've been doing is putting together an extremely deep understanding of what is jihad and what is Jewish identity. And we're going to be going to the high schools, Jewish and non-Jewish, public and private, all throughout New York City and hopefully beyond into the tri-state area and the national and God willing world, as well as to the corporations, because it's necessary now, as my father had done with a program called Jewish Public School Youth, Gypsy, back in the 80s. It's 100% necessary to teach those children before they get to the university. The university system is for Jewish people, or for anybody there. We've already lost that war. We have
Well,
to
it's funded
fight.
by
We have to fight the war for the next time.
The Arab
everybody's
countries,
going.
a lot of the Arab countries fund with like $14 billion.
Billions
of dollars to schools.
So Jewish donors pulling their money out
It's
isn't
nothing.
really going to
It's
make
not
a
gonna do
difference.
anything.
And they're not going to change their way. By the way, Harvard invited neo-Nazis as well as Nazis to their campus pre-war, pre-World War II. They were, and we have an article coming out about that. They were in support. The Harvard Review supported Nazism. So it hasn't changed. Like I said, the equation hasn't changed. It's just that we forgot.
It's funny, David, I saw a talk last week by David Magerman. He worked for Renaissance Technologies. It was
Sure.
a big hedge fund.
Yeah.
And he doesn't work for them anymore. And he was one of the high speed trading and the quant trading. He was the man behind it. He rose to the top of his field, and big donor to Harvard. No, was it Harvard?
Harvard Law, I think.
Was it Harvard? One of the big schools. He was and he said, you know what? A lot of these Jews are writing letters like, if you don't fire this professor, I'm stopping giving you money.
No.
And he goes, you know what? I can't change the way they think. You can't. When someone hates Jews, you're not going to convince them to love Jews. That's just not going to happen. There's nothing you can say to convince them.
I don't waste my time.
You're just wasting time. So he wrote a letter to them saying, thank you for the education, and we see things differently, and I don't expect you to change. I'm not asking you to change. You've shown your true colors, and I'm not giving you more money. I mean, that's what he said.
And you have Bill Ackman, who said, "I thank you for exposing yourself. None of you are going to ever work for me." And then a bunch of other leading corporations,
Yes.
financial institutions
Yes.
said the same thing, that were
Yeah.
run by Jews, and said, "Thank you for exposing your hatred.
Yes.
You will no longer be potentially having a job with me." And then they tried to pull their names off of their list.
Of course, when they see the results.
Shaming, to some extent, can help at least curb their enthusiasm.
Right, yes.
It's not going to change their minds.
No, it's not going to change their minds.
It's not going to change their minds.
That's one of the things that's causing a lot of Jews angst around the world, was the reactions to these schools and many of the governments, especially like Turkey, Erdogan saying, basically praising Hamas. It's really it's nuts. And we have, by the way, El Al. Does El Al fly? Turkish Airlines has a lot of flights.
I flew Turkish Airlines.
And I heard it's a great airline.
Great airline.
Great airline. People like to fly them. And I don't know what's going to happen with that relationship. I know is NATO. I think Turkey's part of NATO too, which is really weird.
Erdogan talks a lot.
Yeah,
He doesn't do a lot. He talks a lot.
yeah,
So, but his talk is powerfully and dangerous.
yeah. It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. So what's the end game? Then that's another thing that obviously causes us problems. What is the end game? What if the IDF goes in and kills every piece of Hamas? Then you have 2.3 million people, Palestinians, or 2 point whatever it's going to be after the war. Because there is going to be after the war, I think. What happens to them? And no one, both Egypt and Jordan have said that there's no way they're going to take in. Jordan can't take anyone because they're going to lose. It's going to become an ISIS country, and it's already like on the edge with that, king. And Egypt doesn't want to take him in, and Iran doesn't. No one wants to take him in. No.
Throughout history, especially modern history, with the state of Israel, our Hatikva, our hope, which is our national anthem, and our mercy, our Rahmanas, is exploited by our enemies.
Yes.
And it's time that we refocus our sympathies and our mercy for ourselves. And later on, after the war, we can figure out what exactly is the process of trying to work out an established, feasible relationship.
Yeah.
I know that after World War II, it also would seem impossible to take a country, I've read many books on the subject. It wasn't just the Nazis. It was complicit with most of the population, including the youth, including all the institutions and the judges. But they were able to denazify the people. Do I think that same program can be applied here? I do not. But perhaps something similar. You would have to have, which hasn't been the case, the partnership of all the Arab countries, especially the ones that are friendly with us, like our allies Egypt, which still promotes the Muslim Brotherhood. Oh, not they don't promote it. Excuse me. But they don't. They help perpetuate the propaganda of the bloodline.
Well, I don't think any of them, the ones that we have peace with, I don't think it's peace. There's a definition of peace. Peace means you're friendly, or peace means just lack of war.
Peace for them is lack of war.
That's what it means,
some
lack of war.
economic peace.
Yeah.
But what I remember reading many years ago, whether you agree with him or not, but I remember reading Benjamin Netanyahu's book on what is necessary for real peace. And it's economic peace, but it's also you have to change the curriculum in the schools. You have to stop teaching them hate. And it was done. If it was done 30 years ago, we wouldn't have had this problem. So not only did we have this problem now, but these same children that are 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, 10 years ago, are the ones that actually committed the atrocities 6 weeks ago.
Do you think that the potential peace with Saudi Arabia had any effect on what this happened? Like
100%.
I mean, the Palestinians were like, okay, we can't allow this to happen. So, and by the way, I still believe there's gonna be peace with Saudi Arabia. I think it's in their best interest.
I think it's just it's a delay.
I think there'll be more peace with Arab countries. Obviously, just a delay. And I also think that not everyone can be this crazy. I mean, I don't. Can they?
Bahrain came out yesterday, or at least I read it yesterday.
Yeah, what they say?
Hamas is a terrorist organization. What they did was similar to the Holocaust, and it was atrocities, and they need to be eliminated.
Yeah,
Bahrain.
Right.
So I think that Saudi Arabia has the same mindset. Maybe they don't want to actually expose it yet.
But they haven't said anything that's so bad against it.
No.
I mean, they haven't.
No, listen, they know.
Yeah.
They all know.
I mean, everyone's going to come out and say, "Try to not kill
if they didn't know
civilians." Of course, everyone's going to say that. I mean, no one. The IDF's not trying to kill civilians.
You know how we know they know? Because they would have brought them into their country to help them if they didn't think that they were atrocious and terrorists and just going to cause problems in their own country.
Right.
So of course they know, and for many years we know that the propaganda is that they use them to cause problems for the for Israel.
Yeah.
So they're a pawn in the game of the Arab countries.
Let's talk about pawn for a second. Now, I have heard somewhere in the news that Israel is a pawn of the United States. That the only reason, in fact, Nixon came. I saw a short. Nixon talked about that. There's really no. He said that the United States is going to support Israel forever. He said there's no reason why there's not like there's oil here. He goes, it's obviously they came out of the Holocaust, but he says it is just a moral right for America to protect Israel. And is it because just to give, just so they have a, they don't even have a base here. It's like funny, United States has a base in Turkey, or Slick Turkey, and they have a base in
several bases in Turkey
and Qatar. I think they have one in Qatar also.
could be.
And but they don't have a base here, and they're more than welcome. I mean, like if I was like,
They have
sure.
more. They have more than a base here. They have their, administration sitting in on military conversations here.
Yes, that's true.
So, they're actually helping make decisions, which is problematic from a lot of people's perspective, that they've ingrained themselves within the military establishment
Yes.
and their decisions.
Yeah.
I tend to disagree with ex-President Nixon. I think at the time he would be correct in asserting that the United States would always support Israel.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to question that today.
Yes.
And I remember asking my father, who passed away a year and a half ago, he's actually buried here in Beit Shemesh. I actually did get here for a week between these 3 years. I was let in for that week during Shiva.
Oh, for Shiva, for
It's actually
burial.
Amazingly, Coach Ratner, my vertigo and all my problems went away
Health problems,
for
right.
those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Came here,
Yeah.
went back, problems happened again.
Yeah.
So it was like a window of opportunity. I was able to get here. So I used to ask my father, well, how could the United States prevent something like Nazi Germany happening? He said, oh, because it's a democracy. I go, well, in a democracy, if you have the majority of people not wanting to support Israel, then you're going to have no support of Israel.
Right.
And that is a potential threat.
Right.
And we see it. It's not at 51% yet, but it's definitely moving towards that on the from the left and from the far right.
Yeah.
So could we see an Israel not being supported by the United States? 100%. And do I believe that the United States' goals and motivations and interests are aligned with Israel? Not at all. There are certain things that are aligned, and luckily Hamas is one of them right now.
Right.
But how far are they willing to accept the alignment and the same...
I think there's also economic. I mean, maybe not with America, but I think with the other Arab countries. I think there'll be peace.
And it's a
I think
democracy.
it's a huge economic boost to these countries. I know, with the UAE just had big peace, and then people are like, there was not until the war, tons of people flying back and forth.
Yep.
In fact, I think there's a lot of kosher restaurants now in the
There's some,
UAE.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, which is more than some of the places in America.
There's a rabbi of the UAE, I think Rabbi Sarno, right?
Yeah. There's a whole thing
Dubai.
going. They have Pesach programs going on, so there's a lot of, they can come here and they can go visit wherever they want to go visit, and lots of. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of positive things with the peace with having other countries.
So do you think that the Nazification or de-Islamification?
I don't know. I think
happen?
it's going to be a long. I think it's ingrained in societies to hate the Jews. I think that it would take some time. I think you have to change. Obviously, like you said, you have to change the curriculums in the schools. Let's start with that.
Should have been started, but it was.
And again, it's still not. It's still not.
It's never been started.
So what would you think? Like, the question was raised when this war started: is this an existential threat to Israel? And one of the worries we had was, Hezbollah getting involved, Iran getting involved, Syria getting involved. Now Yemen has gotten involved. Is this an extent? And it can be. I mean, it can be an existential. How do you say it? Existential?
Existential.
Existential.
In the sense that the true nature of world hatred, it's not just from Hamas, it's worldwide.
Yeah.
And what you're recognizing is, if you don't have a deterrence to this type of hatred, which apparently our what's called mow the grass strategy over the last 50 years of when Hamas or Hezbollah or any of these terrorist organizations got too strong, we would mow the grass just to weaken them. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
We have to have a stronger deterrence. So if you don't deter, with extreme proactiveness and offensive military,
I know,
you're never going to be able to prevent from something like this from happening.
It's really
again quickly.
It's a shame that now Israel is going to have to ramp up its advancement in technology. Obviously, they're probably one of the most advanced technologies as far as war goes now, but they're going to have to ramp it up again because of this. And there's a we have nowhere else to go. That's what I think Golda Meir says. Where are we going to go? We have nowhere else to go.
Just
Can you
keep on strengthening the eye and the bubble.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah. And as long as we continue to remain united, God will watch over us.
Yes.
That's our hope. That's the
unity without and
that's
we don't
also
have to,
the tikva.
Yeah, unity without uniformity, as my Rebbetzin says.
Right.
We don't have to be. We all have to be the same.
Shouldn't be uniform.
Huh?
Shouldn't be uniform.
No, you have some people who daven like this, and some people who don't daven, and some people who detrafe, whatever.
I was walking around the old city with my tzitzis on, and sometimes I forget to wear yarmulke because I'm not so machmir about yarmulke. And somebody said, "Where's your yarmulke?" I go, "I got my tzitzis."
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. We shouldn't. I'll say this, Coach Ratner. I remember learning about Yonah. And the reason he was punished. One perspective is that he didn't act the way God expects his prophets to act. So how does God expect his prophets to act? Well, Abraham begged God and negotiated for an entire 2 towns of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yes.
From 50 to
down
40
to 10.
to 30, down to 10.
He didn't go below that.
Right, but he negotiated for, even though he knew how evil Sodom and Gomorrah was, he still negotiated if there was 10 righteous people, please save the entire nation or the entire 2 towns. You also see it with Noah. Noah as well was punished to some extent, or at least his surviving, or the survival of our country, of our planet, wasn't based on Noah being Rahmanis and showing the people to do tshuva.
Right.
It wasn't. He also didn't follow in the right path.
No, he said
similar to Yonah.
Yeah, he's supposed to open the first Chabad. Or Isha Torah. He didn't do it.
He was supposed to get the people to do tshuva,
Yeah,
which
he
is
didn't
why 40 years, I believe, it was 40 years before the flood would happen.
Yeah.
He was building the ark.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be getting the people to do tshuva.
Yeah.
And Yonah was told to go to Nineveh and have the people do tshuva. This is a country of non-Jews.
Yeah.
And what did he say? They deserve it.
Yeah.
And he was punished for it severely. The reason is because ultimately judgment, is to be left with God. God, of course, expects us to have some din. Our universe, our world was created with din. But he expects our prophets to be sympathetic first and to beg for our people to be forgiven. Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm sorry. So the other one was Moshe Rabbeinu and Avraham. Moshe Rabbeinu, when God said, I'm going to wipe these people from the Torah,
Yeah.
because of the
Golden
Ekel Zahav,
That's the
Moses
golden calf.
himself said, if you take these people out, take me out from the book as well.
Yes.
So he went up, and God loves that.
Yeah.
And I always use the example, and Babylon, and one more example, Coach Ratner. In the story of the Tower of
Babel, yes.
Okay, it's a perfect example. Why didn't God destroy the world for the people who rose up and tried to build a tower to fight God? Because on one level, God was actually proud of the people. Not that they were trying to debate or to have a war with
They were unified.
They were unified.
You were unified.
And
That's why you destroy them.
That's why you didn't destroy them. And I always use this example. I say to my friends who have a lot of their kids running around doing a lot of stuff, I go, if your kids, all 5 of them, how many kids do you have, Coach Ratner?
5.
If you have all 5 of them, okay, one of them's never getting along with the other. There's always something.
Oh.
If all 5 of them got together and pulled a little prank on you,
Yeah.
you may be upset about the prank, but you'd be having nachas for the fact that they all got together to
I
do
have to tell you,
something.
one of the most amazing things in raising a family, and I think it helps to have children that are close in age together, because I know I've seen families that are far apart and they don't have a great relationship. And my kids, thank God, have a great relationship, and they're all friends and they all support each other.
That's
and
nice.
there's no better
That's
feeling.
unusual.
There's no.
That's nice.
It is. There's no better feeling than having kids who are unified
Yeah,
and who get along.
yeah.
Even though not perfect.
So what is God? So God, just like a father and his children,
God
just wants to
loves
see
those
us
that
unified.
He loves those that love his
Even
children.
if we're unified against him,
Yes.
he was okay with it.
Yeah, it's funny, the word Tower of Babel, and I don't know, I haven't asked any rabbaim about this, but when you have a child who's, going from 1 to 2 and they start to speak, and you say, oh, they're babbling. And it's funny because the word babbling
It definitely
probably comes from the Tower of Babel, because what God did is he took these 70 nations
it's not probably.
and he probably
It's not
and he gave them each a separate language, so they couldn't communicate with each other.
There is somebody, then you can look it up. It's called Edenics, and I've looked into it.
Yeah.
Who is creating a science or a academia of
Words?
proving
Yeah.
that there actually was one language, and that the entire 70 languages
Yeah.
all originated from
Hebrew.
Hebrew.
Yeah, it's funny when I don't really speak Hebrew very well. When I
Neither
got
do
to
I.
Israel 4 years ago, I started taking an Ulpan class, which is how to learn how to speak Hebrew, but more Torah based. And I was blown away because when someone comes to America and they learn a language, someone comes from Mexico and they want to learn, take English like a language, they say, oh, this word came from Latin, this word came from this word. And when you go to learn Hebrew, they don't come from anywhere.
Yeah.
And they're all interrelated, and the words
Well,
have
they come
meaning.
from
And
their essence.
they come from the essence, right? They
Yeah.
come from the essence,
Yeah.
and that this is really cool. I mean, this is not like, it doesn't come from anywhere.
God
else.
brought the animals in front of Adam.
Yeah.
He saw almost like in
Essence.
a matrix level essence of them. So, for instance, the easiest one is the dog was Kelev,
Yeah.
because a dog has so much love and loyalty. They called it Kelev,
Like a
of the
heart. Like a heart, right?
And every animal was named by its essence. So every word that was created by God, the letters were actually what created the universe, according to the Zohar.
Well, they said that I think
Every letter
Rashi said the
has
Hey and the Yud was spiritual and physical world, which is by the Yud and Hey is the name of God.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So the answer we have going on here in our podcast is that basically you bring God into your life. You follow the word. I try to live my life through the lens of God. What would
Right.
God make when I want to yell at someone or judge someone? I'm like, what would God do? And I think that's how I make my decisions in life. I'm not sure. The Quran says you should go and rape. I mean, I don't know. Like it
does not.
It does not. No.
I've studied the Quran.
Oh, you have.
I was a
okay.
religion minor in college. Yeah, it does not.
Yeah. And by the way,
This
there's
is-
not one. The word Jerusalem is not anywhere in
Not
the Quran.
mentioned there.
Nothing. It's not even mentioned in the Quran.
We say it. I believe over 5 to 7 times just when we say Birkat Hamazon,
Yeah, I know.
Okay?
Yeah,
and they don't say it once in the entire Quran.
right. We face Jerusalem. We pray. Everything about Jerusalem. Everything's about Jerusalem.
I will tell
It's
you.
the center of the world. This is where heaven and earth meet. Right here. People say when they
Yeah.
come to the Kotel, which we're 200 yards in front of, that I just feel it's something I feel here. It's because this is where God resides. This is where heaven and earth meet. This is where God is everywhere, and you can be in St. Louis and God's there, but it's almost like listening to an AM radio at night, where you hear the radio station,
Yeah.
but it's coming in staticky. But here it's Dolby Digital 4D surround
The
sound.
frequency is perfect.
It's perfect here, and this is why people, when they come to Jerusalem, they're like, "Oh man, there's something about it." They go to Tel Aviv. Oh, it's a nice city, but Jerusalem, oh man, something special about Jerusalem.
The frequency is very
Yeah.
different.
And by the way, every religion knows that. Also, that's why they want a piece of it.
Of course they know.
The Christians want it. Everyone wants a piece
You
of
know,
it.
I've been thinking through my mind, what is it that has helped perpetuate us as a people, and it's what we were describing throughout the entire podcast, but something that you touched. It's for the last 43, 44 days. For the first 30, we were going through Shloshim. We were mourning. This entire
that's
country was
horrible.
mourning.
Horrible.
There was, as I described it, there was a mix of horror, sorrow, and unbelievable unity and beauty. And it was all mixed together as one. And you'd go to synagogue, and sometimes you'd have one person saying Kaddish or two. There'd be a bunch because a family has decided to come to Jerusalem to have Shiva.
Yeah.
And the entire family is saying Kaddish, and then maybe there's another family, and you'd have a terrible amount of people saying Kaddish, and a tremendous amount of people coming who don't know them to pay a Shiva call. Thousands of people went to the woman that was murdered by the East Jerusalem 16-year-old.
Yes.
Thousands, including myself, went to the funeral, and the Shiva was down the block from me, so I went to Mincha Marv there.
Yeah.
Almost, I tried to go every day. So what perpetuates us as a people? And I think it's 3 things. It's all based on the Torah. And what are those 3 things within the Torah? We have to fight together, we have to mourn together, and we celebrate together. Because we're more than neighbors.
We're family.
I was in New York City, exactly. I was in New York City during 9/11, and
So was I.
There was a unity there. You remember?
I was there.
And it was a beautiful unity, and it was ephemeral. It only lasted a few weeks or a few months. And I said to somebody, "This is a slice of 9/11, but you have to take it to an exponent, because the difference is that this isn't neighborly. This is mishpacha. This is family."
Yeah.
And the difference between that is felt. You can feel it when you look at somebody in the eyes. When I met you for the first time this morning, an hour ago, we're brothers.
Yes, we are. Probably fifth cousins or something somehow.
Yep.
Yeah. So I always view Jerusalem, talking about Jerusalem, as a city for the world. When you come to the Kotel, the Western Wall, it's a place for people to pray. My Rebbetzin, Lori Plotnick, had met with the leaders of the Western Wall Plaza and has said that they should have prayer books for every single language. That when you come here and you're an Albanian and you speak Portuguese, they should have prayer books for every single person, because this really is a place for the world.
It's a great idea.
When the first temple stood, all the nations brought sacrifices here. They all brought animals here. They all came here. They all prayed. And it's really not a place, which is funny because, Jews are not allowed to go on the Temple Mount, which is the top where the temple was. We can't even drop a quarter and bend it over because they say we're praying there. We're not even allowed to. It's crazy that this exists here in Jerusalem. But we are not allowed to pray.
I've gone 3 times since I got here.
Yeah. And but really, this is a place for the world. Yeah. And as I think it was Golda Meir said, if Arabs dropped their weapons, there'd be peace, and if Jews dropped their weapons, they'd be dead. They'd be eliminated. So which side are you on? Are you on the side of good? Or are you on the side of evil? You have to make a choice in life. Yep. What side am I on?
There are no fence sitters in this battle anymore.
No, this is good
Anybody
and evil.
That has decided to remain silent is complicit in the other side, and I hold to that, because if you choose not to speak out when you see evil, eventually evil will get to you.
It will get to you.
You're also complicit in not speaking out. The old adage is, when the Nazis came for so and so, I didn't speak out, or when the Nazis came for those people, I didn't speak out. And then when they came for me, there was nobody else left to speak out. If you don't speak out now, then you will be forever holding your peace, unfortunately.
Right. Well, we hope in the that we see soon Hirsch Ben Perachana.
Amen.
We hope he's recovering. God willing, they're taking care of him, and maybe when he comes back to
quickly,
Israel,
safely,
they can put another new. They have these new arms they can give him. God willing.
Amen.
And we hope that there's peace in the world, and we hope that the world stands on chesed, on kindness,
and MS,
truth and justice, and that we see justice done in the world, and that we all see how to live in clarity. That's why I want us all to live in clarity.
On that note, just before we end this podcast,
yes,
I was told something. Again, I don't remember who, because as you know, we're hearing a lot of good Dvar Torahs.
Yeah.
But when the Nazis committed their atrocities, they hid them. And when Hamas did what they did, they exposed them and were proud.
Yes.
When you have an evil, like the equation that I said is not new, but when it's revealed again, when you have an evil that takes it even further, to the extent, because we thought the Holocaust was the pentultimate evil. It's not. We're now exposed to what we today is a pentultimate evil. But when it's exposed to that level, and they're proud of it, and people are marching in support of it, on the other side has to come an exposure of good as well.
Oh, it's going to come.
And the difference between the exposure from the evil to the good is that from the good there is no limit. There is a limit to the evil, because it will destroy itself.
Yes.
So what we're all looking and waiting for and feeling right now, Coach Ratner, is the moment when there is going to be and it is going to happen. I don't know exactly when. I just pray that it'll happen quickly.
It's funny. I when I talk about investing, which I don't do that much anymore, that when you invest in a company, what's the most you can lose if you buy a stock? Is what you put in. You buy $1,000 worth of stock, you lose that. But the limit to what you can make is unlimited. Yep. It's unlimited. Yep. There are people that put $1,000 into Monster Beverage or
Yep.
Amazon or
Unlimited.
Apple, and they've made tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
It's unlimited, and the good in the world is unlimited. And you have to be
Yes.
able to see that,
Amen.
but you have to choose your side.
Yes.
Am I living on the side of good?
Yes.
Am I living on the side of evil?
Amen.
And an organization that's doing good in this world is Faces International,
Right.
here based in the old city of Jerusalem, and they are helping to find out. They don't just like bring, like, I know some people they're bringing brownies to the soldiers. They don't need any more. I'd say crap, but they don't need any more like junk food, right? But they say we need bulletproof vests. We need to get Shabbat dinner for this day. We need a barbecue. We could use a barbecue for this day. We need, certain supplies like,
When I walked
knives.
in here that first time, when David walked me in here
Yeah.
a couple of days ago, and I
Yes.
saw all the different goods being put together in different
They're taking-
tables and being
Yep.
put into boxes, I knew I found a
They're
spot.
taking
that would-
orders from what they need and they're delivering it, and they're helping the families.
Beautiful.
Lots of displaced families, not just ones that the government made leave because they're too close to the borders. There are many communities that are close to the border of Gaza that are they're not within that limit, but they hear the bombs constantly going off and they can't stay there. I know we
Right.
have a family in our building.
Yep.
I think in the T-vote they came from, and they don't have to leave, but they left because they just can't live there.
Yep. The same,
And they're not getting support from the government, so we have to support them. So please be generous. Give to
Please.
Faces International. There'll be a link below in this podcast. And I want to thank you so much, Darren. It was great to interview, great
Thank
to
you,
have you on
Coach
this
Ratner.
talk today.
Yes.
And we'll hope to maybe see you again. And this is the Living Clarity Podcast. I'm Coach Ratner, and we'll see you next time.